Lisa Feldman Barrett writes about our body budget. In the same way that we have to be careful about how we spend our money from our bank account, we need to be careful about how we budget our body energy to make sure that we've got enough for all the things that we need to do. So just as we deposit money into a bank account, we eat food and drink liquids, and that fills up our body's bank account. If we go too far into debt, or too often, the bank will be contacting us and they may dishonour some of our payments. Budget. And our brain is 2% of the body by weight, but uses 20% of the energy. That makes it very expensive to run. So the brain is always looking for ways to economise. One way the brain economises is by setting up habit patterns. So when we do something that seems to work well, our brain gives us a wee squirt of dopamine, and that makes us feel good and makes us want to do it again. So after we've repeated an action a number of times, the brain can turn it into a habit pattern, which is an automatic way of doing what is needed that's much more economical. When you first tied your shoelaces when you were young, it was hard to do. You had to think about it. But after doing it a few times, you just seemed to sort of put your hands down by your shoes and magically they seemed to know what to do. It was cheap and easy for the brain to do. There is a habit pattern for everything that we do. Mostly that works out really well and means that we have plenty of energy to do what we need to do. Sometimes, however, we set up habit patterns that don't work that well. Imagine a child at kindergarten. Someone takes one of their toys. There's no adults around and the child hits the child next to them who took the toy. They grab their toy back and their brain thinks, oh, that worked. Next time that somebody takes something, I'll hit them and I'll get my toy back. And before you know it, you have established a new but unhelpful habit pattern. And we also create habit patterns by watching other people. Particularly if a child sees adults solving problems through abuse or violence, they will start forming habit patterns that use abuse and violence. Now, another way that body budgeting can create problems comes from how we cope when we are stressed and overwhelmed. The call on our body energy is more than we have available. It's like getting a huge car repair bill that there's no choice but to pay. So you start thinking of, what do I need? What is it that I don't need? First off, obvious luxuries can get put off, and you can start putting off more and more things until it comes down to things like rent. A common strategy for when we're feeling overwhelmed and stressed is for the brain to shut down the most expensive parts that use up the most energy. The part of our brain at the top and to the front tends to be where our social skills and thinking abilities are managed. And this is really expensive on the body budget. So closing down the expensive brain functions solves the energy problem, but now we have no longer access to the ability to think clearly and properly manage social situations. Now, under the thinking and social brain is our emotions, and they're great for telling us how we feel in the present moment. They're much cheaper to run, but they don't look into the future, and they don't look at the long-term implications of what we're thinking to do. When we make our decisions from our emotions, it doesn't usually go that well. We can use many techniques for calming ourselves down, like walking away, taking a time out, using breathing techniques, finding a distraction, whilst the emotion dies down and the higher parts of the brain can kick back into action. It's also useful to be aware of the energy drains in our life. It's a little bit like having an old Netflix account you forgot to close off. It eats away at your bank account bit by bit in small amounts and you don't notice it, but over the time you're left drained. So what are the ways that you choose to spend your time that drain your energy rather than charging you up again? In the long run, they will leave you drained when you really need the energy. So noticing our body budget and seeing the impact it has on our lives is a simple but powerful tool that we can use to keep on track so that we can make better decisions and get on better with all the other people in our lives.